Good morning, LinkedIn Network and everyone in it. Hey, um, I decided to do this morning's video. In the neighborhood, there's a tall lilac, and as you can hear, the birds love this particular little bush and tree. Right beside the lilac is a rowan, or otherwise more commonly known in the United States as a mountain ash tree. And obviously, you can hear the birds love it. So the topic for this morning is negative neuroprogramming, right? Um, what is it? What does it do? Most of us come from, we all come from what we call our family of origins, right? The family we were born to. And then we have our life experiences. With negative neuroprogramming, it can really happen at any point in life, but the most fundamental and most difficult negative neuroprogramming to reroute is that happens from our family of origins. So it depends on the kind of messages you got from that family of origin. Now, I need to make something really clear with this video before I get too far into it, and that is that I am in no way either condoning bad behaviors, abuses, or anything like that, and I'm also in no way singling out parents as the bad guys at all. This is a video to teach a little bit of awareness, a little bit about how our brain and neural networks function, and we'll start there. So, negative neuroprogramming. From the ages of about 0 to 6, some will say 5, our brains are pretty much like sponges. They don't really filter out what's real and what isn't real. It's part of the reason I've been very protective of my kiddos, what's put in front of them, what kind of media, what they see, what they're exposed to. Because our brains don't cognitively separate this is real and this isn't real just because it's seen on a screen or in a cartoon. And that becomes even more palpable with kiddos with special needs, with like sensory processing, cerebral palsy, autism, and others, but those specifically I know for sure that like sometimes it's difficult for them. Like if they see an example in, say, a cartoon of someone being hit, it's very difficult for them to separate that happens in a cartoon, but you're not supposed to do it. And this will happen quite often, actually. Parents will let their kids watch cartoons or media where there's some form of violence. And some people will take issue with me calling that violence. They'll call it humor. Now, whatever your stance is on it, the point that I'm trying to get across here is that when you let your small child watch that kind of media and then get mad at them for hitting, you're sending them a very mixed signal. They don't necessarily separate that out at a young age. And the other thing that happens is that when we're really tiny, our brains take in our caregivers, whether that be our grandparent or our parents, whoever's our closest caregivers. Our brains they're our world. They're our safety net. They are our almost sole way of learning about how to perceive, act, and be in the world. And so they emulate that. They emulate us. They don't sit there and reason it out like young adults will or adults will. That's just not the way the brain works. So if your child is walking around misbehaving or kind of antsy and all over the place or whatever it is, I always encourage parents to first look at yourself first, okay? And this all goes back to neuroprogramming. What are you teaching your child by your example? So we use these big words like neural networks and neurology and brain plasticity. And while those are complex subjects, it's nice to put it in lay language and keep it simple for people. Your actions and who you are your child's example. And it is what teaches them exactly how to be, who to be, what to be in the world. We recently were driving, quick story, I and my little kids, and we came up on an intersection and there was a woman standing there, and she didn't look like the typical homeless person. I don't know if there is a typical homeless person, but she didn't look like the typical that we see in this area. And she had a sign and it wasn't written in bad English, and her sign said, "Anything helps, hurt my foot, can't get work." Now, many of you have probably seen all sorts of things like that. And I smiled, and I looked down to see if I had any cash in my wallet, because I don't always have cash in my wallet. And I did, and so I opened it up, and I pulled out the cash, and my children are 4 and 5, and they're like, "Emo, what are you doing?" I said, "We're going to help that lady." And they're like, "How?" And I said, "Well, she can't get a job." And I explained to them, and as I'm explaining to them, I'm rolling down the window, and I handed the money to my little boy who's in the passenger side, and I said, "Here, buddy, give that to her." She came up, and she just lit up to see my kids and to get a little bit of help, but just absolutely lit up. And as we were rolling up the window and pulling away, my daughter says to me, "Ema, we're like superheroes." And of course, obviously, you can see how that impacted me. I laughed and I felt joyous. I said, "Well, sort of, honey, but you know what? We all have superhero powers, you know? Being kind is a superpower." And we talked all about like kindness and how to be of service to others and how to take care of ourselves. So that conversation went on off and on all day long. But the point is that one simple little thing I did with my kids, well, it's not the first time, but that one simple little thing made such an impact on her about who we are in the world and how we are in the world, right? And I'm not one to go around saying, "Oh, I do this or I do that for people." I grew up being taught that you don't brag about helping people, you just do it, right? And so, but it was cute for me to see that with my daughter, and that goes all the way back to that neuroprogramming for her and my son and her sister. They're going to remember that. That's their example of who to be and how to be in the world, and that is their neuroprogramming that they're getting from me. When I mess up and I get too angry, like I had a bad moment last spring, and this is, I really just need to get this out for parents and for people about like putting it in simplistic language for you. So I had a bad moment last spring. It was post their father moving out, and I was really stressed out. And I came in, and my kids were doing something that I had asked them not to do a couple times, and I got really angry, and I could feel that anger just rising up. I could feel myself on the edge of a tirade. And one of the things I do with my kids is I teach them to take a pause. If you're getting angry or escalated, take a pause. Remove yourself from the situation, take a breath, calm down, take a pause. And if they don't put themselves in pause, which they're now getting old enough and being more capable that they do that on their own sometimes now, you know, when they were really little, I put them in pause. And I was getting too angry, and I could feel that I was on the edge of giving my 4 and 5-year-olds a giant tirade that they didn't deserve. And I looked at them and I said to them, "You stay here. Ema needs a pause." And I stomped out of the house. And I went outside and I pushed on a wall, because that's one of the quickest ways of getting into your body and out of your head and out of your emotions, is to tap into your physiology, tap into your autonomic system. And there's a lot of ways of doing it, but I did exactly what I teach my kids to do, which is to push on a wall or to grab like a pillow or a stuffy and squeeze it. And so I pushed on this wall, and I counted, and I breathed, and I calmed down, and I came back in, and I was just feeling terrible, like, oh my God, I messed up so bad. I showed my kids, you know, being angry. That was my example for my kids. And then they went to their fathers, because we share our kids, and midweek I get this, or no, when I went to pick them up next, he said to me, "The funniest thing happened this time with the kids." And I said, "What was that?" And he said, "Well, I was helping Ephraim clean up upstairs, and then I came downstairs. Both the girls were sitting across the room from each other, and I asked them what they were doing, and they said they put themselves in pause because they were fighting with each other." And me, being me, was like, oh my God, I wasn't a bad example after all. Because they had learned from my example that they could put themselves in pause. Now, my video is getting too long sharing these stories, so I need to sum up a few things for you right quick. So negative neuroprogramming really is about our example. Are we being negative with it? Are we being positive with it? What are we doing with our examples? Because our kids emulate. They emulate, they copy, they mimic. They do what we do, not what we say. And that goes in as their basic network of programming when they're children. So what is going to be your programming? Thank you.